Hey everybody, this is Higher Labs Coding Bootcamp. Welcome back to week 5. We're working on back-end design and development this week. We'll continue building our to-do list app that we've done so far, and day 10 out of 12. So we only got a couple more days next week that we're going to do. And today we're going to be implementing CRUD operations as most of what we're doing today, to finish up with what we started with the read operation last time. As a refresher, we're going to go through this pretty much, next couple of classes as we do these operations. But it's things that we get done with the database, right? So we get create some sort of record. We can read those records, update them, and delete them. These 4 things, the acronym CRUD. And last time, if you were with us in class or if you caught up watching the video, doing it between then and now, we implemented the read operation where we grabbed some information out of our database that we made and we're able to look at it. Any questions about stuff up to now before we kind of move on with continuing to build this? Anybody get stuck someplace? All right, cool. So today we're going to continue to do this. We're going to do create today. And we'll leave update for next time. Create and update are very similar. We're going to start interacting more through forms. Again, this time we're going to be making something and sending it to the database. When we do update, we're going to grab something from the database, make changes, and send it back. So create is sort of one step towards that creation of information and data that we want to send over. And then update is going to be a somewhat more elaborate version of that, where we grab something first, like read, and then change it like create. And then delete will be easy. We'll just grab something and get rid of it. So that'll be fast. On Tuesday, we'll do update and delete. Today, we're going to do create. When we talk about some other things. Before we dive into that, I want to do one real quick conceptual thing. We talked a little bit already about, requests and responses. I wanted to add this little picture of an API before we skip this piece. Who's familiar with APIs? I'm sure we've all heard this. Who knows what it stands for, first of all? Nobody? You want to take a swing? Take a guess?
Application programming interface.
Oh, see, Aurelius knows. You're just holding back. So what does that mean? You know how to define that a little bit conceptually? Like, could you explain what that is?
Um, it allows two softwares to communicate with each other, basically.
Yeah. That's really good. So it does. It allows 2 softwares to communicate with each other. So how would that be relevant to what we're doing here? Like, what way would we use APIs when we're developing a web application, do you think? What ways could you think of? Any APIs you know?
So they can share data.
Kind of, yeah. Okay, so it's somewhat similar. Yeah, very much. Share data. That's exactly what they're doing, right? So APIs generally are things that are written by somebody somewhere, right? So like, okay, Google's got a bunch of APIs that you can use. And what it does is it'll give you data that you don't necessarily have access to. It's a way of accessing data from some other application, some other place, right? And it's a way to share that information across. So a lot of times what we're doing is we're sending these requests and responses, like we're sending requests through APIs and they're giving us a response back. A lot of times it'll be in JSON, which we've talked about before. But this whole process, APIs, is one of the things that is included in the whole backend world of stuff when you're getting information. So for example, instead of, like, say you want to do a map function in an application you're making, and Google is very good at maps, as we know, they have an API you can use where you can use their API to get map information instead of writing your own from scratch by just using this HTTP request and response system to send the information that your users want over as a request to this API, and the API sends a response back. Right? So that making sense? That everybody tracking on what that is and kind of where APIs fit into the whole scheme of things? Any questions about that? All right. So along this process, when we talk about HTTP, which we've already been using and working with the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, we're going to be talking about request methods. So requests have a whole bunch of information in them that I've mentioned before. We're not going to dive deep into the header and the body and all the stuff that's in there. One of the main things that you're going to be interacting with when you're developing with Django and you're writing your views and we're doing these create operations is the method of the request. And that is using HTTP terms. And so we're going to use some of these terms today. We're going to use post and specifically to create a record. So I just want to show what these terms are. There's some slight differences in whether the CRUD operations, but they've generally mapped to the same idea. So they might be called something somewhat different, but they're basically doing similar things. So today we're going to write post request, and we're going to use the word post. And this is why I bring this up now, is that that's what's used to send information over HTTP to create a record somewhere. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We've technically already been doing GET requests, is what you do for reading records, except we don't explicitly write GET anywhere in our code. So I didn't call this out earlier. Today we're going to be writing post explicitly. So I want to make sure we understand what it is we're referencing. And all that's doing is telling us that the HTTP method of the request is going to be sending information to the database, to the server, to be stored and create a record. The other two things, there's a put, there's also a patch for updating, but we're not going to split hairs on what that is. And then there's delete, which is called delete, which is nice. So any questions about this before we dive into getting hands-on and why I mentioned these things? All right. Silence and no cameras. I will assume everyone is tracking 100% and knows exactly what's happening. Stop me if you don't. If you got questions, shout them out. Yes, Aurelius, what you got?
I meant it, the thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up. Cool. All right, that's even better. All right, man. Let's move on to the hands-on then. And that is the last slide. So let's slide over to our Python Anywhere instance. And we're going to start in, sorry, I'll make this a little bit larger so we can zoom in a little bit. Starting in a bash console, like always, get in the habit of doing the first things we need to do, which is, what's the first step? We need to
Get into our virtual environment.
activate our virtual environment. Very good. So we do source space, name of the virtual environment, bin, and activate. Then we need to change directories, change our working directory into our top level project root directory. All right, so now we are ready to go. And the first thing we're going to do today to get ready to do our creating operations is we're going to do a little bit of kind of refactoring, restructuring, and implement something called namespace. Is anyone familiar with the term namespace? Have you heard of this in other contexts or talking about other things?
Nope.
Nope. Nobody? Okay. So generally speaking, namespace is this sort of concept in computers and programming where you're delineating an area where variable names and things like that are known. It's somewhat like a virtual environment. It's an area within an application where the scope is defined and the variables are what they are contained in that area, right? So what we're going to do is use that same concept, and namespace our URLs is a process that we're going to go through right now. And the reason we do this is so that our project, and let's get this tree command open and show our project directories again, so we have a look at this. Because the reason we're going to namespace our URLs is so that we can expand the project and not have any conflict between the URLs that we use for different applications, because sometimes they might be similar. So let's have a look at this, and I'll show you a little bit what I'm talking about. JavaScript is the last thing we want to ignore. Okay, so our project directory right now, we saw this top part, dot, remember, is our working directory where we are now, which is the tilde my site, so home my site. We have our project level things here in the my site directory with our settings and whatnot, and then we have our to-do application. If you recall, we have our own templates and things like that, but there are URLs that are mapped in here. Now, each one of these, if we did another application, might have its own index. It might have its own about. It might have its own, we want to use maybe the same URL type names in each application. So one of the things that we do is we namespace our applications so that all the URLs that are in this application are separated from other ones so that they can be reused, so that we can have an index here in this to-do application, and we can have one at the project level, and they won't collide with each other. Those indexes can both be called index, and they won't run into problems. So this namespacing is a really good habit to get into, and it's a good thing to do at the beginning of a project, because you're going to alleviate the hassle later of having to make sure that all of your URLs are completely unique across an entirely gigantic project. Does that make sense conceptually? Is anyone totally lost on what I'm explaining here?
Nope. Sounds good.
Okay. All right, cool. Cool. All right, so let's go through this. And what we're going to do to namespace, since we're namespacing URLs, the first thing we're going to do is go into our URLs in our to-do directory. So this to-do URLs, and I'll just open it up in the GUI so we can work in our code editor, text editor. Or maybe I won't. Maybe my browser won't load and we won't do anything. All right, there we go. So I'm going to go into my site, to do, and down to urls.py. So we're in my site, the to do URLs list. And as you remember, we have this URL patterns, and then we've got our, our index and our about and our view tasks. They're the URL patterns that we have right now. So the very first thing we're going to do to namespace our URLs is right above this URL patterns. I'm going to add a variable name called app_name. This is what is expected. It's built in, just like URL patterns in Django. It's like an expected kind of reserved name that they use. And we're going to call it the name of our app. So to do. And what this is doing is saying, all right, so this application is called to do, and all these URLs are associated with that application. So now we can, that is the first step of namespacing. We've applied the name to this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to refactor our code here and separate these URLs that are more project level up and put them in the URLs at the project level, and then make sure that we can pull the views from here, because these views, if you recall, are written in the to-do app, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to cut it with Control X. Just going to save this. And then we're going to go to the top level, my site URL. So we're going to do URLs now. I'm going to go up to my site, and then my site urls.py. So now we're in my site URLs is the one that has all the built-in stuff from Django, the explanations and the comments and telling you what can do. And we have our overall path that we're including the to-do URLs. We have our admin path in here that comes in, again, standard. And what I'm going to do is add the about and index. Just going to add them right up here. Makes no difference if you add them at the bottom of the list or the top of the list, but spacing is important. So I've added our index and about URLs here at the top.
So why is it that you have to go from this? Why does everything have to be everywhere? Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying. So like some of these things are not necessarily done this way, right? We could put all of our URL patterns in just one page here and just have one URLs for the whole thing. The idea is that it's going to grow almost immediately. Like as soon as you start doing more than one app, which you almost and certainly will, it's going to be really hard to keep track of. So that's kind of why it needs to be everything is everywhere. Does that make sense?
I guess.
But no, there are. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
And do the ones that you cut from the urls.py and place here, do they have to go above these other ones, or
no? The order here isn't going to make a difference. It'll be all right. You can put them below if you wanted to. That's okay. Yeah, really. So you got a question?
Yeah, so we're just taking these URLs from the to-do space to the home space, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then so after we do this, we're gonna adjust the references to them in our A tag links, and hopefully it'll be a little bit clearer why we did all these things to make sure that we have our project level stuff, which is going to again be our about page and our home page, our like project level things, and then app level stuff is going to be somewhat separate. Making sense?
Making sense.
Okay.
I got let's see, hold up, never mind.
Sure.
I got error messages, undefined name views.
Perfect. So what do you think that means? Because you saved it, right? You saved it before.
Yeah.
Okay, which is fine.
We haven't put views somewhere where we haven't defined it. Maybe is that the word?
Yeah.
Something with it.
Yeah, we had no. You're absolutely. Think through this. Is perfect. This is great. So, where is that telling you it's not defined? It's not defined on this page, right? Okay. So how do we get around that?
We have to put it somewhere.
Import it from URLs to do?
Yes. We have to import it.
Okay.
All right.
From
So
the other URLs, the
yeah.
my site URLs, not
So
the
not
my
the
site.
so we're not going to import the URLs though, right? So it said
Oh, okay.
if you, and so actually Shadiqua, it's really cool that you got that error. That's good. Actually, you know what? Here, see if we can recreate your error. I'm going to save mine too without importing and see if we can get this too. So we just show everybody the same thing without them having to do it themselves, but everyone can too, right? So undefined name views, this is what it looks like for you, right, Shadiqua?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. So it's referring to this piece, which is what? What is this right here that I have highlighted? The views, right before the dot and then the index. What is this referencing? What's that pointing to?
Um, I got nothing. I don't know.
That you could do it. Think about it. Think about the pattern that we follow when we make these things. We're gonna do it again when we make our create, but we've done it already with our index. We've done it already with our read and our about page. We start with writing what? A view, right? We start a view, and then we
Hmm.
then we map the URL, and then we do something with templates, and we do something with links.
It's not a
What?
command.
No. So this right here, it's in the name. It says what it's pointing at. It's pointing at what?
Views, but that doesn't really mean anything to me. I thought you
Oh,
were asking what views is.
yeah, yeah. So I am like, where
Oh,
where is that in our project? What is that referencing? It's we know it's a file in a directory, right? Because
hmm.
that's all that's being done here. So which file, which directory? I guess is the question I'm asking you. When I say what it's pointing at, what file is this referencing? Because
Okay, wait.
it's not URLs because we're already including those here. So we wouldn't need to include those again. We wouldn't be getting this error if it was from URLs. It's something else, right?
Um, the main, no,
No.
I don't know. And I don't want to waste time trying to
It's
figure it
okay.
out.
No, it's not. I mean, that's the thing. If it was a waste of time, I move us on. The whole purpose of this is to understand what's happening and get these questions. Kind of stumble through it. So it's our views.py. That's what it's referencing. So just like we did
Oh,
in
okay.
our URLs on the project level, we have to get the views from this file into our top level view URLs. There's no reference to it here. So that's what we need to import, not the URLs from the project, the views from the project. That makes sense?
Hmm.
Cool. All right. So from similar to what we've done up here, we're going to do a slightly different import statement. Because again, one of the reasons I do it this way is to show you the ways you can import things in Python. This is sort of showing the flexibility of Python, even though it may not necessarily be the way to do it. But we're going to go from to do. So that's the application level directory. We'll say import views. So the name of the thing that we want. But we're not going to want to just do import views, right? So if we recall, actually, I think we can go down here and have a look. In the URLs in our project thing, we did from the directory ranks, we're in the same directory in this urls.py, import views, and then we stop there. And then we just use views.task, right? And that's all fine and great for in this project, but now, or in this application. Now we're at the project level. And like I said, we're writing all of this to make way for larger projects, applications being added. Every application is going to have views. So we can't use this word. It won't work that way. We have to name this something else. So in an import statement, you can dictate a variable name to the thing that you're importing. So right now we're importing our to-do views. So what we do is we just add to our import statement. So from to-do, which is the name of the application directory, import views, which is the name of the file we want. And then we do as and give it a name that we want to use here in this file to reference that specific thing. So we're going to give it something descriptive to know which views we're looking at. So it's to do underscore views is what I'm going to use. But again, this is a variable name. This could be whatever we want it to be. So does this make sense to everybody why we added this piece and what it's doing?
And we only see this name in code, not on the site, correct?
Yep, it won't show up anywhere else. It's just going to be for reference on this. I think just this page alone, basically, because
Okay.
we're defining this thing as being called this in this file. That makes sense?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So the last thing we need to do. So now we have to do views. We need to change our references to just views down here to match this thing because we did import views, but then we changed the name of that to do views, right? So I'm just going to copy and paste everywhere. It just says views dot something. I'm just going to do to do views. You could prepend to do underscore if you like, but I'm lazy. I like copy and paste. So then when I hit save, it should get rid of those errors. It does. So now we don't have any errors. Our URL should be set up fairly well. And the last piece we need to do to complete our name spacing, again, just to remind you what we're doing here, the whole process is name spacing our to-do URLs so that is a named space of URLs. When you go to our base template where we have the link that references our to-do app, if you recall, I'll go back to our site real quick. This link right here that takes us to our to-do list app. We need to update this reference to make sure that it's pointing to the right namespace. So this is an exceptionally common pattern. It's why we're doing this. So we're going to go to our base URL. So if you call us the top level my site templates directory, base.html. If we look at our A tags right here that are in our nav element, for me, it's on rows 14 to 16. All of our URL references are about the same, right? Because they're all pointing to the same place. But now what we have to do is put this one, this view task, it is in a separate space. So what we have to do is add something to this now URL reference to tell it that is part of the to-do app namespace. If you call in our URLs, I think we still have it open. Yeah, our application level URL, so to-do URLs, the app name that we applied, this could have been, actually, I don't know if it will work with any other name. I'm pretty sure it has to match your application name, but it should anyway, even if it's not like dictated by the software, it should. If you pick some other name, that would make no sense because it wouldn't reference that. All we have to do is add that in front of this name of view that we want. So we do to do and then colon within that same string. So within the quotation marks that we had, you just add to do colon and then you leave the view dash tasks reference. And what this is going to do is going to say that now this is the namespace that we're going to look for this view name in. And since these are no longer in the to-do app, they're now at the project level, we don't have to do any changes to those. Those will just go to the project level with no namespace because we didn't, there's no namespace for the top level project. So once we save this, that should be the last change we have to make. We have to reload our source code on the server side, and then we should try it out. And since it's largely the refactoring, we should expect the code and the page to behave exactly the same way. It shouldn't be any change if we didn't break anything. So I'm gonna refresh my browser. The longer it takes, the more nervous I get about it, but everything's working on the home page. About page link still works. Go back to the home page, and I can go to my to-do list still. So it looks like these links work and nothing broke. So that is setting up namespace. That is namespacing our URLs. Does that make sense? Any questions?
So if it didn't change, well, it changed something, but it's not a visible change. It's not something that we can click on or whatever.
Nope. And that's, again, it's called refactoring. That we changed the code so it's written and structured differently on our end back here, but the functionality and what the user sees on the end didn't change at all.
Oh, so it's more housekeeping than anything.
Yeah, it is. It's more housekeeping than anything. And this is really, again, so like you can now use this URL any number of times in your project as long as they're in different application namespaces. So you don't have to worry, like you use index again, you can use about again. You don't have to worry about making sure they don't collide because you can namespace all of your applications.
And is that what happens and I don't remember, so forgive me, for anything
Sure.
that you put, no, that's not what happens for anything you put in the base, right? Because we put stuff in there that actually changed the functionality or the look or whatever, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we can change stuff in this file. It's not because it was just in this file that we changed it. It's just that, generally refactoring is rewriting the code in some way that's either more efficient for it to be run by the computer or easier for humans to read. But either way, it should never change the end function. So it's not going to look or feel, or shouldn't look or feel anything different if it's just refactoring, if that makes sense. So yeah, again, I realize I like putting it that way. It's a lot like housekeeping, but it's also, again, sort of laying a good foundation of a project so that it can be built easier later. But I guess you could call it housekeeping too, because that's kind of the deal, right? All right. So any questions before we move on? No? Great. So let's move into doing our next operation, our next CRUD operation, the creating of records. So now that we namespaced our app and we've got this set up, we can start going back to building more functionality and adding something different to this. So right now, again, to refresh your memory, we can go here and we can read only the records that are in our database now. We can't add anything to it. So what we're going to do is add a way to add things to it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make another file that we're going to use to reference and put our forms in. So this, again, if you have questions along the way on why we're doing it the way we're doing it, please ask. I want to make sure that it's clear that some of these things are decisions. We don't have to make a separate forms file. We could put this in our models, for example, because we're going to go into our models and we're going to, or I'm sorry, not models, our views. We could just write it directly in our views. It would just get messy doing it that way. So it's best to just start with a separate form, even though we're only going to make one form. It's going to be a small file. A lot like we do with JavaScript, where, you know, if that's the only thing we're ever going to do, it wouldn't make a ton of sense doing a separate file. Just bear with me on this. It is best to do things in a separate file for forms as well. So I'm just gonna do this in the GUI instead of going and making it in the Bash console. We'll just do it here because we're making one simple file. We don't have to make any subdirectories. And we're just gonna do in the to do directory. So I'll just move up to here. So I'm in my to do directory. So my site to do, and down here we see we've got our init.py, which we're not gonna do anything with it all in this class, I don't think. And then admin.py, apps, models, tests, URLs, and views. Up here where it says files, this little input bar, we're gonna input a forms.py and hit this new file button or enter, whatever the case may be. It'll take us to a blank page. Okay, so now we got our forms.py. I'm forgetting the file. For God's sakes, I forgot the name of the file. So files and directories, and I forgot the word file. So we have our file now, forms.py. What we're going to do in here is we're going to define a form. So basically what this is going to be a class. We're going to use a class, but it's going to give us a way to interact with one of our models that we built. Remember, if our model is, well, tell me what are our models? What is a model in Django terms? And what model did we write? When I say models, what does that mean?
The status isn't a to do. That's what we created, right?
Yes. Yes. Let's go have a look at that in another one real fast. So in our models.py, if you recall, we defined our task class. And what is this a representation of? It's a Python class, but what is it representing when we made this? What is task? Besides a class, it's a class. Anybody remember? All right, it is a database table, right? So this is the definition of a database table. Our models are the database tables that we're going to use in our projects. So task is a database table. So think of this as anytime we reference a model, we're interacting with a database in some way. That's what models do. That's what they are. Everybody tracking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this form that's going to be able to interact with that model and take the information out of it that we defined in our models.py and give information to it. We're going to do those interactions in a view, but we're going to define our form here separately as a, like, this is what the form will look like when we go to use it and make different instances of a form. So we're going to make a class that's a form. And we're going to use stuff that's built into Django. So we're going to start by importing a couple of things. First, from Django, lowercase, DJNGO. Yeah, I spelled it right. Import forms. And it's going to have a bunch of stuff built into it that we're going to leverage, and it's going to make it a lot easier for us. Again, backend framework. Now we're also going to need from our models, so dot models, from dot models, we're going to import the model that we're going to work with, and that's task. So now that we got the pieces that we need, we're going to start defining our class. So we do that with just the word class. And then we'll give it a descriptive name. Usually form is included in the name. So usually we say the thing that we're doing, form, right? So this is going to be our task form. And then like we did in our models, where we inherited the models.model from Django's database module, we're going to do a similar thing. We imported forms. We're going to do a similar thing here. We're going to, in these parentheses, put a parent class. This is called forms.model form, camel case. This parent class will give us things that we can use and inherit in our class. So That's why we do this right here. This is a way of inheriting the information and stuff that's in this parent class. All right, so then we do colon to further define our form class. Inside of this class, stick with me now, we're going to define another class called meta. This is a reserved word. This is how Python does these things. We could get deep in how this does it, but it's basically to pull it apart. This is how it's going to go and interact with a database, right? So this is how we're going to be able to give it what database model we want to use, which fields we want to use out of it by using this meta class that is built into Django. So if you're curious what that is exactly, we're not going to dive into it right now. I encourage you to go read it in the docs if you've got a hard time falling asleep. But for now, just know that the meta interior class is the way that the task form is going to interact with our models. So the first thing we need to do is an attribute of this class defining which model we're going to use. So our task model is task as an attribute. And then we're going to pass it fields, plural, as a list, list with square brackets. And then we're going to list as strings the names of the fields that we want to grab. And if you recall, field is the name that Django uses for each of the columns in our table. So the column names are title, due, and status. That's the columns that we have in our task table. So any of those fields that we're going to want to interact with on this form, we're going to include in this form fields list. So we don't have to put all of them if we don't want to. We are going to use all of them on this one. But this is how you would do that. If you have, let's say, I don't know, a timestamp that's created automatically when a record is made or something like that, you may not want to include that field here because it's done automatically and you don't want users to interact with that field and see it. There's no need for it. So you wouldn't include that sort of thing. For our purposes for this, we're going to do all of them, title, due, and status, comma separated as strings inside of the list for fields. And then that's it. So this is the class that we're going to use to reference to make our forms. Any questions about what we did here and what these pieces are? I'm going to save this before we get rolling again. Nothing? All right. So now we're going to go to our views, and we're going to start with the same steps that we go through each time that I've already mentioned once. I'm going to keep mentioning it. We're going to go views, then some sort of URL, then some sort of template, and then some sort of link to get there, or something to get there, probably an A tag. But so go to do views.py, and let's write ourselves a create operation view. So the first thing we need to do before we go dive into this is we need to import a couple more packages that we're going to use. We've used up to this point, we've used render, and that has taken a request and a template to render that request information to, and we've used that for our, technically, this is a GET request. All these were some sort of GET request. But now this time, we're going to have to do somewhat a little bit more complex with creating things. So we're going to need to use a few more Django built-in pieces. And basically, the reason that we're going to do this and have to use other ways of returning information is because when we create a record, there's something that's sent off to the server, and then we're going to have to get information back to our user and push them someplace else. Like, we're not going to send the user to the server. They're going to go some other place. So like the information they want to save to the server goes one place. They're going to be redirected to another place. We have to redirect them. Aurelius, you got a question?
Are there common Django references that we have to like pull from at the beginning of a project? Say like how we have Django shortcuts and we're about to import another. Is there like a standard set that you have to have for every project?
Yeah, no, I love that question. That's a really good question. So the way Django is built, first of all, I guess taking a step back, the history of it was built by like newspaper people, right? And they were trying to hit deadlines and have something they could put print and like kind of blog sort of stuff up online really fast. So a lot of the ways that they came out with as the default base starting point that we've used when we did like start project and start app and all those things, that's kind of what they decided as the minimal basic starting point. But as you're seeing, it's not quite enough to count as like boilerplate for a project. You end up adding a bunch of other things, right? So to answer your question, there really isn't a fully standard set of those things. But what we're going to do in this course up to the very end is basically that. Like you could take what we build as a boilerplate for pretty much every project and use that. So like this thing that we're going to put in here with the redirect and our reverse is the other thing we're going to use. I count that as kind of like standard getting started boilerplate. Whenever I start a project, those are the first things that go in there.
Gotcha.
So
we're building that now.
Yeah. So we are building that over these 3-4 days that we're building this back end stuff. And I've had people ask like, why doesn't, if we have to add all these things every time, why doesn't it just come standard? Because they want some amount of flexibility, right? So like I mentioned, we don't have to have forms out there in a separate thing. We could have done that form class definition here, like on the top of this page, but then it just got jumbled as it got bigger, right? We want to keep it kind of clean. So those are decisions that Django doesn't want to make for you.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So we've been rendering our requests up to now. And now, since the request is going to involve creating something in our database, we don't want to send our users to the database. We want to send them to another page on our site. We want to redirect them somewhere. So we're going to import from shortcuts. We're just going to add after render a comma and then redirect is the name of this package we want to get from there. And then we're going to do something else with from a Django URLs package that's going to allow us to use that namespace thing that we were doing, and it's called reverse. It does like a reverse lookup where it takes the name that it's looking for and then goes back up through the namespace. Again, if you're really curious about how reverse works, good to look up, but for our purposes, just know that's what we're going to use. If you have questions about it though, ask, but we're not going to dive deeply into the deep parts of reverse. I want to be more clear on where we implement it and why than all the deep level hows. All right, so the last thing we need to import, that's all the stuff we need to import from Django. The other thing we need to do in here is we've already got our model that we're using, because we use that to get our task objects before to look at them, right, to list them out on our page. But now we also need to get that form that we made so we can interact with that form. So similar to this idiom right here, we're going to import from our own project. So from dot forms, because it's in the same directory, the to do, that's what the dot refers to, the same directory we're in. Import, and then the name of that class that we made, which again is task form. And the beauty of following naming conventions is I don't have to flip back and look at the thing again. I know that I used the name of the class, the name of the model that I was interacting with, and then form, both capitalized. So that should be the extent of our import statements. And now I'm going to scroll down a little bit to below our view task view definition. I'm giving myself some space.
So okay, I think I got, not I think I got.
Sure. What's up?
Okay, I have Django shortcuts redirect imported but unused.
Yep. That's what I have too.
Got that too.
Yep.
Okay.
I got that too. So that's again, one of the like handy features of these code editors is they'll say, hey, you imported this, but you're not using it. And, I do appreciate that sometimes, but sometimes they just need to calm down. This is one of those times. We haven't used them yet. We're going to here in a second.
Well, for a person like me, they need to stay on.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. They're not bad to have. Absolutely not. But it is at this point nothing to worry about. All right. Cool. All right. So we go a little bit below view tasks, and we're going to define another function. So we're going to keep doing functional views. Later in class, probably on Tuesday, if we got time, we'll refactor into doing class-based views, but we'll keep doing all these in functions. We're going to define another function. So our good old friend def. And then again, any name we want to, but we'll do something descriptive. So create task, since that's what we're doing. And just one task. So remember, we did view tasks. Keep in mind your plurals and singulars here. We're not creating multiple tasks. That may be a function you create later. Right now, we're doing one task at a time.
Found out the hard way yesterday about task and tasks.
Yeah. Ran into problems with that, calling the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yep. Easy mistake to make. All right. So then we send in a request like we have every other time. Nothing special here yet. It's going to be the same that we've done up with the colon. Now, the first thing we're going to do, I mentioned this when we're talking about sort of conceptual things, we need to check the method of this request. So this is the first time that we're really it's the first time we're going to grab anything out of the request and do anything with it. There's a lot that could be gleaned out of requests. If you end up making an app that has users log in and stuff like this, this is the way that you'll get those things out. Like the user information will be in the request. So you could do request dot whatever you want out of it, just the way we've done with other objects in Python and other classes and things like that, right? So we're going to say if request dot method, whoop, I'll spell method correctly, request.method is equal to, and then all caps post as a string. So this is checking to see if the request method is post, meaning that it's a post HTTP request, meaning it wants to create something on the server, wants to create a record. So if that happens, we want to enter this block of code. And what we're going to do in this block of code is we're going to say our form is going to be the task form. Whoop, task form. And we're going to pass that task form a request dot post, all caps. So this is saying if it is a post method, make a form variable. We call it form. Just again, we could call this anything, but we're going to call it something descriptive so we keep track of what it is we're using and what we're doing with it, right? And we're going to use our task form class that we imported, that we defined, which we know is linked to our model. And we're going to what is called bind this post information from the request to this instance of the form. That's what we're doing here. So we're taking the information that was sent in the post, or like the post information in the request, and we're going to link it up to this form. We're going to bind it here. So what we could do here is if we wanted to, if there's other things we needed to do, again, if we want to grab other information out of the request, like the user that sent this in, if we had users logging in and all that stuff, we could add other logic here and do other stuff with it now that we've created this form object. We're not going to do that in our case. I'm just letting you know that this is a place you can do that. We're just going to save our form right now. That's pretty much all we're going to do. But before we save it, there's a really standard built-in thing into Django Forms to make sure that the information inside of it is valid. Otherwise, you don't want to save the form. So we're going to do an internal if statement. So we have our first if conditional. We're inside of it again. So we're 2 indentations over, 2 levels of indentation, which is 8 spaces. So we say if form dot, and it's going to be built into all forms. So it's a built-in method in all forms. So we dot is underscore valid, open close parentheses, because it's a method. We need to call it like a method. Then inside of this, we're going to tell it what to do, right? So if it's valid, we want to save it. So we're going to do form. Where's right form is from? Form dot save, which is also a built-in method. So this right here is like the minimum amount of information that you need to enter to take a post request, like check if it's a post request, bind that post request information to a form, make sure that post request information is valid, and then save that form information to your database. So this is what we've done here. Any questions so far on what these lines? Yeah.
This probably is a little redundant, but the open and close parentheses, why aren't we putting the value in there now again? I'm sure you answered this several times.
This one right here?
Well, not that one, but the other ones that just kind of, I guess, baked into Django, like form is valid, open.
Oh, this right here? Yeah.
Right.
These open and close parentheses. So these are, because this is valid and save, these are class methods. So if you recall, methods are the same as functions in Python, and to use or call or invoke, all those words mean the same thing. A function, you have to do open and close parentheses.
Copy that. Okay.
So if it was, for example, an attribute of the class, then we wouldn't put parentheses. It would just be like, form dot is valid, and it would give us a Boolean or something like that. But methods always have open close parentheses, and so do functions.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, cool. So that's all fine and great. We've saved our information from the post request. We've checked that it's valid. We've saved it in the form, or we saved it to our database. Now we got to do something else, something with our user, right? So that's the data that they sent with their request, their post request. We sent it to the server. We need to now push them someplace else. So our return statement, we're still within our if block, right? So we've now moved over that if it's valid and if we save it, we're now going to return something. And as I mentioned before, we don't want to return these folks, our users, to our server. So we want to redirect. Now we're going to use that redirect call, redirect them to the reverse. So inside of our redirect call, we're going to do reverse. And then we'll give our namespaced URL that we want to send them back to. In our case, we're just going to send them back to our default view tasks page, right? The page right here. So if you think about this before we finish it, there's going to be a way to add things here. We're going to put a little add button on here. It'll take us to a form. We'll fill out that form with the details. And as soon as we hit save on that form, it'll take us back to this page and our new task should be there. Because when we go back to that page, our view task will be called, and it should pull up all the objects out of our database, and we just made a new one. So that's what this is supposed to do right here with redirect. Our redirect is going to push our users back to that view tasks view after it saves. All right, so now we need to deal with our other case, our non-post request method. So if our method is anything other than post, which we will assume is going to be get, we don't have to be explicit on saying it's going to be a get method, but if it comes in with non-post, we want to just serve up an empty form. So we just do form, just like we did before, where we define a variable named form, and we give it an instance of our task. Sorry, form, not farm. Yes, Reli's question.
I noticed when we typed in the else condition, we had the backspace to the top if.
Yep.
Does it matter where that else condition is located?
Absolutely does. Yes. So this else condition is in opposition to this one. So it's part of this logical tree, basically. And so if you put it anywhere else, like if you put it over, if you don't have this space at all, it's going to break entirely. If you put it in line with this one, it'll treat it for the else condition of this statement. So I'll say like, if it's invalid, then do this other thing. And we don't want that, right? So it's got to be in the same level of indentation as the outer if that it's a part of. So one indentation in. Good question. All right, so this is all we're going to do in our case of creating, because we just want to give the user back a blank form if they haven't sent us information, right? So they haven't sent us post information. They're going here for the first time. So this is clicking the add, create whatever it is we're going to call the button the first time, and we're not hitting submit yet. This is when we hit submit up here, our method post. This is when we hit add. So we just get our blank form. All right, now outside of that indented block for else, that's the only thing that's inside of our else condition. So it's 2 indentations over. So now on the same line as our else condition, so we're inside of our definition of our view, we're going to use that context object again that we've done before. If you recall, we use dictionary for this. And we're going to, similarly, as we've done before, where we passed our tasks when we did our view, and we passed the tasks into our context, we're going to pass our form into the context. Similar syntax. We give it a key value pair with a comma at the end, trailing comma inside of a dictionary. The key can be anything we want to, but we want to give it something that we're going to remember and we're going to know and use. And we're going to use this as a reference to the variable name that we have up here. Now, since this context is outside of our else conditional statement, this form is referencing either the request post method or this one, right? So either way, it's going to get the right form. It's going to send it to the context the way they're supposed to be. So the last thing we need to do, again, since we're outside of our post, like basically when this comes in first and a reason, and if it's a post method, we have a return statement here. So if it gets to this return statement, it stops and won't go any further, right? So once we get all the way down here, if it was a post method, it will not check any of the further conditions or do anything else. Good. So I guess that is slightly inaccurate. This form only refers to this because it's only going to hit this part if it was not a post request, right? So we need to give it some kind of return for the non-post request scenario, the other than the get request, right? So we're going to do return on the same level as our context thing, right? So the same one indentation level in. And we're just going to render because now we're just doing the blank form, right? So this is the same pattern that we're going to follow before. We don't have to redirect anybody. We're going to do the same sort of thing that we did with our view tasks thing, where we're going to render our create task template. So we do render, we're going to send the request information because we do want that information, just like we have before. We'll do to-do / create task singular.html. If you recall, this is a template we have not yet created. We'll create soon, and then we'll pass our context object. So same render that we've used in the past because we're not redirecting any users. This is the first time someone goes when they add thing, and they're going to get a blank form back. So that's why there's no redirect. That's why we're using render here, and we're using redirect here. All right, so when we save this, what's our next step? We've written a view. Where do we go from here?
Create a URL.
Yes, we map our view to a URL. Oh man, there was an error saving. I don't like that. How about you stop having errors saving and start actually saving? Okay, there we go. No more errors. All right, good. So now we've saved our views. Now we're going to go over to our URLs. So same directory. So to do urls.py. And we're going to add that create tasks or create task. I'm sorry, create task path. So I'm just going to copy this path and create a new one below and just change the parts that I need, right? So we could call this URL pretty much whatever we wanted to. We'll call it tasks new. Again, this is fairly arbitrary. You call it what you like. The important part is that we change which view we reference. So instead of view tasks, we are going to do create task singular. Similarly here, instead of view tasks, we are doing create a single task. Because again, you may add creating multiple tasks later. So make sure you're keeping an eye on your singular plural. You want to change this singular too if you want to keep it consistent. However you like. This URL part, not going to break anything if it's not matching. These are the parts you really got to match to things. Okay, so once we have this set up, we're referencing the view that we wrote, and we gave it a name. Now what do we need to do? We've done views, we've done URLs. What's the next step?
You had to create the go to the bash and create the template.
Got to create a template. Yep. And I'll leave it up to you if you want to do in the bash shell. I'm going to go ahead and just do it in the GUI to switch things up a little bit, but feel free. It's just a single command. We have to make subdirectories, so it'll be about the same amount of time. But yes, we have to make this create task.html template. So before I go to that, where do we want to make this template? Is it project level? Is it application level? Do we want to be in our to-do templates, or do we want to be in our my site templates?
This is for the to-do form, so you'd be under to-do.
Very good. So to-do. Man, my internet is really not playing along with me today. I guess Python Anywhere's sick of my BS. Ooh. My to-dos are unsecure. Okay, so to-do, and then we're going to go to templates directory up top next to static and migrations. And if you recall, there's a redundant to-do, so the directory here is my site to-do templates to-do. And we should have our view tasks.html right here. And alongside of that, up here in files, we're just going to create a new file called create task.html. Remember, call it the same thing we called before. Or else we're in problems. We've already referenced this file a couple of times, so if we get creative with the name now, hit new file, then this thing might take me to that file. We might spin for a while.
I think you're having some internet issues.
It could be. Yeah, it could be
You
internet
blacked
issue.
out for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm telling you. It's telling me I have internet instability issues. That could be a problem. Oop.
Just the heat.
Yeah, it's the heat. Okay, so that created my thing, but it broke taking me there. All right, here we go. We're going to create tasks, HTML, and it's blank. So we got nothing. All right, so what are the first things we need to do each time we create a template in our project? What do we have to do to connect it to the rest of the project front end?
Import. Just kidding.
Yeah, import. That's right. You're on the right track. But what do we call it in Django as opposed to Python?
It's the brackets and the percent sign. I forget what you call it.
Yep. Extends. We're extending our base template, right? So then we tell it which template we want to extend, which in our case base.html is a string. Then close off our extends tag. And then we have to add our block tag, which we have called content, to remind us that our main content on our page is in this block. But again, that content word is a variable name that we set before. So it's arbitrary, but block is reserved. And it must have, well, end now, so I don't forget, the end block. Easy to forget. And now we're ready to make our template or our form page to create a new task. All right, so I'm going to do similar to what we've done before. I'm just going to put some kind of heading up here. I'm going to use an H3 tag because it's not as big as like the main heading, but I want to tell people that they're on the new task or create task or whatever you want to call it to let people know that that's what's happening here. Then underneath this, we are going to make our HTML form. So we created our Python form, which is going to interact with our database in Django. This is the form. That's what a form looks like on the internet. So we're going to use the HTML tag form, which is very fitting. I'm going to go ahead and close it off. And then I'm going to add some attributes to this top opening tag. Right. So the first thing I'm going to do is a class, which we've done several times before. We've added classes to as attributes. And we'll call this a post form. Yeah, I realize. What do you got, man?
I don't know if it's a lag or delay, but I don't think it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't see it either.
What happened? Oh, are you not seeing this?
Oh, now it's catching up.
Is it catching up?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. My
Okay.
internet too slow?
Yeah.
All right. So we got a form class or our form tag. We've given it post form as a class.
Frozen again.
Mm-hmm. Wait, did we lose them altogether?
We might have lost them altogether now.
It is in
Oh,
here
there it
to.
is.
Oh, all right. Am I
Yes.
back? Did I stop that entire
Yes.
time? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
My God. Okay. Okay. If this keeps happening, I'll try switching my network and see if I can go to backup. But can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
We didn't hear anything before you started typing action.
Action. Okay. Cool. 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 Good. I didn't say much after that. Awesome. Well, actually, I was insulting everyone deeply. So you've all been horribly insulted. And you should be
That.
insulted. No. So I was explaining this action attribute is set to an empty string, and what this is doing is basically making it so that old browsers don't break. Is pretty much what this is doing. It's somewhat optional, but it's a good practice to leave it in there when you're doing these forms. So I encourage you to do it. Everyone still with me, or did I die again?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, good. Now I'm afraid that I'm frozen and talking to myself. All right, so the next thing that we need to add in here is what method to expect in this form. So we're going to do similarly post is the method that we're going to expect. And then we're going to, inside of our form tag, that's the last attribute we need to add, we're going to do some more Django front end things. The first one is a very cool one that we don't want to forget on our form. It's a single tag, doesn't have a closing tag, but we have inside our Django front end tags with the curly brackets percentage signs, we're going to do what's called a CSRF underscore token. And this is a security feature built into Django. This is called a cross-site reference forgery. That's what CSRF stands for. Token. And basically what this is doing is it's a cybersecurity thing to make sure that someone can't hop in here and send us bad information. That's what this is doing. So anytime you do a form in Django, you're going to want to include your CSRF token. Again, something I encourage you to look up what cross-site reference forgery is, what kinds of attacks can be done with those. For our purposes, just remember to include it in your forms.
And Jeff, before you move on, quick question about, I know you mentioned what action does, but can you tell why you didn't put anything in the parentheses?
Yeah, like why there's nothing, why it's just an empty string?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something with just like the way old browsers handle forms. And like it expects some sort of action thing to be there. It'll expect this attribute to exist in like old browsers. And if it's not there, they'll break.
Okay.
But modern browsers don't do anything with it. So you don't have to actually have a value, but it should have this. So that's why we pass an empty string. It's just like a placeholder kind of thing.
Thank you.
Sure.
And we don't need commas in between the strings.
No, good question. So if you do multiple attributes in an HTML tag, they could just be separated by spaces, no commas.
Okay.
Good call. I didn't even think to highlight something like that. It's a good question. All right, so now we put in our ever important cross-site reference forgery token, which will keep us safe and secure on the nasty interwebs. And we're going to, underneath this, do something we've done already a little bit. We're going to use a for loop, a Django for loop. So it's going to be inside Django brackets, the template tag brackets. So for. And this time we're going to loop through our form object that we wrote in our view. So this is going to be basically each field in the form will be printed out in its own spot is what we're going to tell this to do. So for each field, again, this could be anything that we want to use, but we're going to keep it descriptive. So field in form, this is already dictated. We wrote this into our view. Remember, if we pass it into our context, the form that's coming into our context is called form. So we have to reference that here. And I'm going to end this for loop now, so do not forget our Django tag. And then inside this for loop, we're going to basically put the HTML similar to what we did for our viewing each task for each field that we want to put up on our form, right? So we're going to put in our div element, and inside this div element, we're going to put in a paragraph element. And inside of that, we will reference, remember the two curly brackets, when we reference an actual thing from each of these fields, we're going to say field.label, and that will be the words, like title, for example, will be title, and those sorts of things, or due date will be due. And then we put a colon, this is going to come out as plain text because it's outside of our brackets, right? So think about this as being visually on the page. And then I'm going to use, still inside of our p tag, this HTML BR, which stands for break, and that's going to give us like a space down, so like a carriage return, like hitting enter, and then below that, we will put field, and this is actually the value of that thing. Label is the title of it, like so if it says title, it'll say title here, and then field is the actual value for that thing. So if this form is blank, it's going to be blank, but it'll be that input field. So that's what this little piece of the code is doing for us.
Does the space matter?
The space in here?
Yeah. No, the space is inside the double brackets. I'm sorry.
Oh, inside the double brackets? No, it does not. That's more for visual aid for humans. The computer won't care about that.
And what about in between the P situation? Because the first one, there are no spaces, and then the second one, there's a space before.
Yeah, play around with that. That might make space. Like this trailing space, you're not going to see because it's trailing. But yeah, if you move it over here, that'll make a difference. Those spaces will be there. So yeah, these spaces are in there. So if that's going to mess up your design, take them out. Because all the stuff in between the P tags is treated kind of like plain text unless otherwise stated, right? So this is just going to be how it is. The white space is just going to be how it is. Good questions. All right, so once we have that in there, we're going to build in a way for this to deal with errors if somebody doesn't put in the right information or put in the right kind of information or any number of things. So errors are built into the forms. All we have to do is tell it to give us some information out if there are errors. So still within our for loop, we're going to do another inner for loop underneath our p tag, so same level as our p tag. And we're going to do for, and I guess, again, as a reminder, this, since we're in front end, the spacing doesn't really matter. It's not going to break anything this time. We're doing these indentations for visual, our own understanding and keeping track of the error of the logic, right? This is not Python, so the spacing is less important. So we say for error in, and again, just like any for loop, the first word that you use is a variable, and we use whatever, but we use something descriptive. And we say field dot, this again, something built in, errors. So basically, if there are any errors in the field, we want to loop through them and grab each one and do something with those errors. I'm going to end my for loop now so I don't forget, because I will absolutely forget. And then, so basically it's going to say, all right, if there are errors, grab each one of those errors and do something with it. And we're going to put up this small tag, which I think is a funny name for things. We're going to give it an inline style instead of having to go all the way out and reference something, and just say color red as a key value combination, inline style. And then as the text that's inside of it, so inside of the actual tag, we're going to do the double brackets, double curly brackets, and we'll just put in the error itself. So this is just going to take the error and print it out in red in small font, or small font underneath the field if there's an error. Any questions on that? No? All right. right. Cool. All right. So outside of our for loop, so out of the last end for, we got two end fors down here. So out of the last one before the end of our form, so we're still in our form, but we're outside of our for loops. We're going to add a few buttons. So we're going to add a couple of built-in ones. First is a submit button and then a reset button. So we want to be able to clear everything off the page and we want to be able to submit this thing. So we're going to use not A tags this time. These are going to be other built-in elements in HTML called button. And we say type is submit, because that is a special type of button. It'll handle all the submitting and the HTTP stuff that we need to handle it off the way that we want it to. And we're going to say submit as the text that's inside of that submit button. Similar to reset, say button. This time the type will be, as you may imagine, reset. And then inside this, we will give it the text reset to tell us what it's doing. And then the last thing that we want to do is give users the ability to cancel. Say, all right, now, you know what? I don't want to make this. I want to go back and go back to where we were. That's not a built-in button. We're just going to go back to our A tags for that because we need to reference one of our URLs and send them back to where we were. So just like we've done in the past, we're going to do an A, which requires an href, which is a hyperlink reference. Then we're going to use our Django tags inside of the attribute. So we got the opening curly bracket, percentage sign. I'm going to close it up. And then in between those, I'm going to use URL, like we did in our base.html. So our A tags referencing URL is going to follow the same pattern. And since we've namespaced things, we're going to say to do : view dash tasks. And then inside of this, we'll put the word cancel. All right. So, any questions about this? No?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we need to get a way to add this. So we need back in our views of this view tasks, our home page for our app, not the home page, but the starting page, we need some way to tell it to add tasks. We're going to add a button that says add or create tasks. That is if my internet works. Okay, so now to do that, we're going to go over to our view tasks.html. So we're still in the to do.
Before you go, can we go back
Sure.
to the A tab? Because I'm typing it in and it's not popping up as a string when I do the to do views. It's kind of just appearing as regular text, but it's not giving me the green text like it's showing up as a string view.
Okay.
It's not doing that for me, and I'm curious if that matters.
It does. So check your quotation marks. Remember that HTML has to have double quotation marks. There's attributes. And then the internal one should be single. And if you're missing one, it'll change what is considered a string.
I got it now.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So let me finish this up. Okay.
All right. Excellent. All right, so now we're going to go over to our view tasks, HTML. So just in the same to do directory, so templates, so my site to do, templates to do, view tasks. And we're going to add a button to create tasks. So underneath our end if, we are going to make ourselves, right in front of our end block, we're going to make ourselves another little section and put our button in that section. So it'll basically be like at the bottom of this chart, there'll be a little button down here that says create task or add task or something like that, right? So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to make another division down here at the bottom of the page. So I'm going to say div, and we'll say class is row. So I'm going to get just another row across the bottom of the page. Give it some space. And then inside of that division that is a row, we're going to give it another div, an internal div, and we'll call that a container. These are built-in things. It'll give us some of the behavior that we want to use. Now inside of this, all we're going to have to do is just a single button, single A tag, that will take us to that URL. So we're going to follow the same pattern we've done a million times. Well, not a million times, I guess, what, 4, 5 times now, where we do an A tag. So A, we'll say class. We'll set this to a couple of things that are built into our front end framework that we're using, Bootstrap, which is BTN, short for button, and then BTN dash primary will make it like blue. It's a blue button. BTN will make it look like a button. BTN primary will make it this primary button, which is a certain style that's already built into it. So, it'll stand out as a button. Now we have to tell it where to go. So it needs an href, and we'll set that to the template tag referencing our URL. So inside the curly bracket %, we do URL, then our namespaced to do create task. Zoom stuff in my way here. Close up our string with a single quotation mark. And we'll close off our A tag. And inside we'll write add task or create task, whatever you want to write. Something that tells the user that when you click this button, we're going to be making a new task. Save this. We don't get any errors or my internet doesn't die on me. And then we'll reload server-side code, and we should be able to go test this out and see if we can actually make a task now that we have it. So let's refresh the browser side. And we have our button popped up down here. It says add task. Right underneath, we have our task that we viewed before, so nothing else broke. And we click on this. Oh, question?
I have an error, no reverse match at to do. Okay, so to do.
Okay.
Create task not found. Create task is not valid.
Did you have, is this reference in your URL?
Wait, which one are we on? Okay, to do, let me go to that one.
Yeah, I have the same error.
Uh-oh.
A class, URL, to do, create.
Colon, do you have the colon in between the to do and create task? Okay.
I don't have a space after the quote quotation. Is that a problem? Is that?
Nah, that shouldn't matter.
Okay,
I mean,
and then add
try,
task.
but that shouldn't matter. Yeah.
I had an error with the website now.
And it said
And
no
just,
reverse lookup at no to do.
Yeah, no reverse match at to do. Reverse for create tasks not found.
Is it create tasks? Did you put an S on this? Where it's singular everywhere else?
Nope, it's singular.
It's matching every other place is matched. It's spelled the same way.
Wait, every other place like what?
Like the other place you would look. Okay, so this is this is great. This is how you would debug this anyway. So you would check here, and then where is this? Where else is this reference? I guess it's a question back for you. Where else have we written this as this is?
We'd have been in 74 different windows. I have no
idea.
Yeah,
we have. We have.
So to do views.
It's not a trick question. Look where it is in this context, and it'll give you clues. I kind of highlighted it here.
So under to do views, it's there.
It is when we reference the template, right?
Yes. To do create test HTML.
But what is this pointing at right here? I'm going to highlight
the
this
URL?
again. Yes. Which is
so
in
check
our.
Okay.
Yeah. Check your URLs.py and the to do.
Oh, yeah. Name. I have create tasks instead of create task on line 7.
On this one?
Yeah.
See? When you read the error, I heard you say tasks. So like it sounded like there was an S in there. And all
right, so let's see.
Try that.
Wait, now where's my site again? Oh, here it is.
On the internet. No, sorry.
Oh, something went wrong.
Something else went wrong? Oh man, nice.
Okay, so let me see. Let me check my error log.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Did that, Alex, you said you were stuck too? Did that get you unstuck as well? Was it a mismatch in the
Yeah, I have the same error, so I'm
I
going over the files to try to find out.
Yeah, make sure that you wrote it this create task. If it says the same thing that Shadiq said, and again, I can check. We can go over and look at yours if we need to. Shadiq, I do the same. If you want, we can look at your error log together.
Yeah, because
Great.
the error log is looking like gibberish to me.
Not helping you. Okay.
I got the same error too.
You got the same error.
Yeah,
Okay, so
well, something wrong page, yeah.
okay. Well, let's have a
And
look. Let's have a look at Shadiq was and see if it's broadly applicable to everybody. So I'm going to go to your error logs in the web tab, all the way down to log files, and error log is the one we want. It's right in the middle. All right.
Oh, I fixed it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Was it just a mismatch in the way things were named?
Yeah, so one of the file, the views.py,
Uh-huh.
one of the lines says view tasks, and then URLs it says view task. So I
Ah,
think what that was the issue for me.
yeah. It was in the view. You label it as
Yeah.
view tasks. Okay.
Oh, wait. Okay, so in to do URLs.py,
Yeah.
it should be name view tasks with an S and then create task without an S, or should they both be task?
So think about it logically, right? So when you're viewing all the tasks, there will be tasks to view,
Uh-huh.
but we're
But
creating only one. That's what I'm saying. Like you want to make sure it's singular when you create, because the view that we wrote only creates one task. We didn't write a view that creates multiple tasks.
okay.
So yeah, the view should be view tasks, create task, singular. But again, you could make them all singular in yours or make them all plural in yours if it's easier to remember.
Well, let me ask you this. What about on that same line, that same path? Should it be task new or tasks new and create task?
In the view itself?
No, in the same line 7 on the URLs to do URLs.
So it needs to reference whatever you called your view, right? So right here, I'm looking at your error logs right now. Where it says attribute error module to do.views has no attribute create task. So that makes me think
so that I don't have one.
right, but where do you not have one? To do.views has no attribute. So where do we reference to do.views? We're importing someplace, right?
File to do
Yeah.
views.
Hang on a second. Let me make sure I'm in your things. I'm bouncing around different screens here. Now I'm pretty sure this is going to be in your views, that like the definition of the view itself is probably, that's what this error is telling me that it did, that it's looking for the create task in the views.py and it's not finding it, is what that error is saying.
Okay, so let me look. I'm looking.
I'm gonna look too, because I'm in your thing now. So we got my site to do. I'm gonna
I
go
have to do create task.html.
Ah, I see. Okay, here we go. All right. So, Shadiqua, this is your problem right here. Can you see it? I have it highlighted.
Oh, the create task request
No,
situation?
I have
No.
Highlighted. What do I have highlighted?
Yes, because it's not in the
Yep, the indentation. This whole definition, it looks like you wrote it right, but the whole thing is one indentation too far over. So what this is doing is you define the view tasks, and then inside of that you define
that.
another view. So like you got to move this
Yeah.
whole thing over, which is really easy to do. Like if you highlight it like this and then you hit control and then just the left square bracket, the opening square bracket, it'll move everything over for you.
Wait, and so everything under it also has to be moved
Yeah,
over one?
everything does. Yeah, because
Okay.
like all these things relative to each other are the right spacing, but this whole block is the wrong spacing. Like this whole
Got it.
extra thing here. So that's why it's not finding this. You spelled it right, but it's not finding it because it doesn't think it's a separate view from this one.
Okay, and then else it should be aligned with the
This is
second,
all
if not the
this is all
first.
fine. Yeah, no, this is all good. All the
Okay.
internal stuff is good. So just what I would do is just take this whole thing, highlight it, hold down control, and hit the opening square bracket, and it'll like shift everything one tab to the left.
Okay.
And that should solve your problem. Or at least that problem.
Well, hopefully that's the only
yeah,
problem.
hopefully that's the only problem. Yeah, but it may uncover another one, but it'll solve that problem. I'm gonna move away from here so we don't have it open at the same time and you can save it. Aurelius, what do you got?
My error saying it's in the Django forms.
Okay.
I am, and I'm looking at it, and I'm not sure where the error is. It says line 5.
Okay.
For my line 5, task forms dot model form. I'm not sure where I messed up at.
Let's see. So you say you got an error in forms up high. So here's my forms.
Yeah.
So forms did you capitalize both model and form in
No.
model form?
Does that matter?
Yes.
Jeepers. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. That's every little spelling error is just gonna break everything, man. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this goes back to what I said in day one. Computers are really stupid. It can't infer anything. If it's like model with a lowercase m, that's not model. That doesn't mean anything to me. They're that stupid. So
Okay. Another error now. I'm
all
pressing
right.
a task, and I'm getting no reverse match at task new.
Okay. So that means that your URLs are probably in some way malformed. So did you, in your URL, did you write it just like this with the ending slash
Yes.
in your path?
Yeah.
And you've got create task all spelled the same way
Yeah.
all through here? Okay. You want me to hop over and look at your error logs together? We can do that.
Okay.
Let's do it. Shadiqua, did you get unstuck? You were able to get to the add task button?
I did get
Nice.
unstuck. Thank you.
Nice. Did you test it out? Did you actually try adding something?
No. Well, oh, I guess that's next step. Oh, now I got an error. Why did you say that?
Nice. All right, let's see if we get this one. See if you figure out your own. We'll see if we figure out really says. All right, so reverse for. Oh, I think I can see what you did.
Is the whole task thing?
Now you got views. You got views tasks. You pluralized view somewhere.
I see.
Yeah, you see that?
So, yeah, I see it.
Yeah. All right.
Value error at task new. That I think that's just what Aurelius said he had. Let's see.
I'm still getting the same error though. And I changed that.
Are you?
Let's see. You see.
First mass. Yeah, reverse for views tasks not found. So where did you write views tasks?
Send a to do view dot hot py.
Mm-hmm.
Site line 26.
Okay, so it was to do views.
Mm-hmm.
You say line 26.
I changed it now. I'm still getting
Yeah, well, yeah, you took all the plurals off.
so tasks.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mean to be intentionally messing y'all up with a plural versus singular. Again, like you can make this whatever it just has to match everywhere, right? And I was trying to keep it logical. Like when we look at more than one task, it's plural, and we create one, it's singular. But the most important thing is that it's the same every time you write it. So,
well, it says mine is at the same spot, but it says the view to do. Wait a minute. View to do views create task didn't return an HTTP response.
ooh, what did it return?
I don't know.
It returned none
it
instead.
returned none instead.
I asked you that because I know that's what it says in the log. I didn't
Wait,
expect
was
you to
it supposed to return none? No.
No,
Okay.
definitely not. Right. Okay, so what do you think that means?
I remember what you said about that.
Okay.
Kind of.
All right.
Didn't we do something where it was like,
We
if
did.
this is equal to that, then return this, but if it's not, return none. But I don't
Yes,
remember where we did that.
we did. So okay, okay. So where have we been building that kind of logic? Like where we're basically writing pure Python functions. We've only really been doing those in one place.
My site to do
Uh-huh. You're gonna wait till I get there to tell me, aren't you?
templates.
No,
No, I don't know.
views.
I'm in
Views.
there. I am in
You're
to
in there.
do views.
I believe you are. I believe you are. All right. So you still have some indentation errors here.
Hmm,
That's okay.
okay.
It's okay. This is again, this is part of Python. It's trust me, it's annoying, but it's not hard to fix. It's just you got to get used to identifying it, right? So this is what I mentioned when we were doing this before. This check right here is an internal block to this one, right? So we're saying that if the request is this, do this, and then also check again to see if it's valid. This else statement has to refer to this one, so it's got to be on the same level. So you have
Oh,
this too far in.
oh, I asked, I said, is it supposed to be
Yeah.
with the
All this,
second if or the first if? And you said this, or I
I
thought
said it
you
was
said the second.
good. I said everything here was good relative to where it would like. So the whole block needed to move over together, and it looks like you just moved over the top.
Okay.
So just got to move over this bottom part, and that should solve your problem. Well, it should solve that problem again.
Look, I better not have any more
Hey,
problems.
it's gonna be nothing but problems. I'm saying this is coding. It's just like one like, oh, what happened now? Yeah. So,
Wait,
just,
I'm sorry. How did you say to move them all at the same time?
oh yeah. So highlight any row that you want to or any line that you want to do. Hold down Control and then hit the opening square bracket. So the left square bracket, and it'll move it over to the left. One tab.
Oh,
That
wait,
works.
can I see the example again? Like, or is that too much? So that I can.
It's way too much, too far. Yeah, let me go back to mine. I'll show you the example. Files, to do, views.
Oh my God.
Oh wait, no, we get there. Alex, you having similar problems?
Oh, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So my issue is that I'm able to create a new task with the button,
Mhm.
but then after I create the button, it gives me error. But when I go back to my main page, it still it has
It has
the
the
new
task.
task that I just created. Yeah.
Okay.
But then just giving me error.
Okay. So I'm assuming, without knowing the error, that you have something wrong in this part of the code.
Yes.
Because it's the
Yeah.
redirect, right? Because that's what's happening there. Like it's doing this part, right? Where it's saving it and committing it and all
Mhm.
that, and then sending the user back somewhere. So like this part's probably misspelled someplace
Yeah.
or missing.
So I'm trying to put S at the end or take S out or view or views. I'm trying a bunch of different stuff to fix it up, but it's still giving still gives error.
I'm seeing that I made that mistake too. I bet you I would have got that same error because I had views tasks. So Aurelius, man, I gotta apologize. I wrote that. You were probably just following me.
Yeah, I
So
think that fixed it for me because I had to go back and fix a bunch of views tasks
yeah.
just now.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, now I have a template syntax error, invalid block tag on line 20 in block, expected empty
I did
or
it.
N4. So now I gotta remember where that was.
Oh. End four. Do you forget to end your four someplace?
Probably, but now which one? Where's templates?
Did it
Can
tell
you
you which
run
template?
your code?
Yeah,
Let's
let's
just
try this again. Yeah, let's try this. New task. Says do then, leave it to do, hit submit. And there we go. Got the new task.
So you're not having any error after you
Nope.
create the button.
Yeah, so we hit create, do another task, give it a due date, give myself extra time, hit submit. Then it pops up here.
Yeah, same here. Okay, I think I fixed it.
You got it?
How do you delete a task? Is that something we're gonna learn next?
Yep. We're gonna do delete as the last of our CRUD operations. It's gonna be super fast. We'll do it on Tuesday. So Tuesday we're gonna do update and learn how to change these, and then we'll add a little delete button over on the side.
Okay.
But you got to this point where you can add them on here and then see them when it pop up.
Yeah, the issue was the view views and
Okay.
if you look closely at the debug screen, they actually show you a picture of the code and where the error is.
Yeah,
That normal.
The Django screen when it breaks. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
got tons of, it'll highlight the line and
Yeah.
the page and everything. Yeah, it's really useful. It's better than the logs and stuff like that too. So yeah, and that pops up because debug is set to true. That's really helpful. That's good. I'm glad you got unstuck. Alex, you still stuck?
Yeah, so on line 27 of the views.py,
Uh-huh.
you said to do colon views dash tasks.
No
Hold on.
S on views. So it's like
Yeah,
view singular.
view tasks. Yeah, I accidentally wrote an S on views when I was demonstrating it, and I just caught that I made that mistake. So it's view tasks. Let me go back to it on, wait, it was in
Yeah, it's in my
views,
Views.py,
site
right?
to
yeah.
do
Yeah.
views. Yeah.
Yeah, line 26 right here. So this right here, I
Mhm.
originally made that mistake where I wrote views tasks. It's just view dash tasks.
Okay, let me try again.
Yeah.
And so it's saying there's an issue with my end block in my create task to do
Oh,
create task.
Okay. In the template.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hop over and have a look at what it's supposed to look like. Templates to do. Alex, did that get you? Get you
yeah,
unstuck?
fixed
Nice.
it.
Cool, cool. All right. So should equal, I'm guessing it says expecting end for. There's supposed to be
At
two
line
end fors.
20.
Yeah, so we got all the way down. That's like line 20 is the end. So like one of these for loops, we have two for loops in here, and they
Uh-huh.
both have to be ended.
Oh, I already immediately see the problem.
Do
No
you?
end block.
Yeah,
No end
my
for.
N4,
Yeah. Do you
I
skip
had
the
a
end fors?
dollar sign instead of a.
That'll do it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All those extra things on here make it so much easier. Just one little mistake.
And then that problem that Alex was just talking about, am I going to have that problem too?
I hope not.
Mm.
But if you do, it's because you followed too faithfully to what I did because I made the mistake. So, you know, it should be easy to fix though. It's just making sure that this is spelled, view tasks.
All right, so let's see, to-do list, add task. Oh, so now I have title, but then I got to type something in there, right? Is
Put
that
something in
right?
there, yeah. Yeah, whatever you want. Pick a date. And then should be able to hit submit. I guess I should fully test my reset
Is there,
buttons.
does Django have other forms embedded in it besides this one?
Oh, like other forms that look different?
Yeah, like little setups, like, or is that completely in the developer's hands how they want it to look?
Yeah, so that I would do on the front end. I
Yeah,
would do that with like a front end framework of some sort and make the look and feel different. The Django side's not gonna do a lot for it.
yeah, I bet that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got an error message.
Okay.
View tasks. Oh, yeah, it's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Same thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
let me fix that.
Yeah. Sorry, y'all. That's my blast. I didn't realize I made that mistake, and I'm all talking about it's like, oh, you guys got to be careful. I got to be careful. So,
Wait, hold up. Where am I going again? Create.
so yeah, to do
tasks.
views. Yep.
Wait, I think I'm in the wrong one. Oh, views.
Yeah. Views.py.
We done for the day, Mr. Sap?
Yeah, we are. That's it. I'm gonna hang out with anybody
Alright.
still debugging, but if you got it working to that point, then we will see you next week.
All right.
All right, thank
y'all.
you.
Yep.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
y'all.
Yep.
All right, I'm not off yet. I want to make sure all my error
Yeah.
messages are clear before.
Yep. Me too, because you're so close. You're right there. So it's got to be some little things and we'll get you over that hill.
Oh, wait, let me try it again. It
Mhm.
added another task, but let
Okay.
me just double check.
Yeah, because it should have been saving it down here to this point and then just breaking on the redirect. So like it's creating the records. It's just not sending the user back to the right place.
Okay, no error message that time.
Nice. So you got it working?
Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. Cool. All right. Thanks for sticking it out. I'm glad you didn't give up. You see, it's satisfying when you get to work,
Listen,
right?
but I tell you what, the day after the last class, I am giving this up.
All right.
I can't wrap my
Don't say
head.
giving up. Say you're gonna put it down and take a break, but don't give
Okay, yeah,
it
I'll
up.
put
Just
it
come back
down
to
and
it.
take a
All right,
break.
all right, all right.
It's
I'll
a
accept
lot.
that. It is. It's a lot. It's a lot. But you're learning more than you realize. Trust me. You can come back to it and be like, oh yeah, I got that.
Well, I
Right.
don't know about that. And when I told my friend I was having a hard time, she was just like, oh, like she didn't expect me to be having a hard time because for her it's very easy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And she's like, oh, really? Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and I don't want to give the impression that this stuff was easy for me. It took me forever to learn this, and I was beating my head against the wall, and it's frustrating as hell. So don't just take your time with it. Seriously, don't give up on it. Is the key.
All right. Well, thank you. I
Yep.
appreciate you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll see you Tuesday. Yeah,
All
Tuesday.
right. Take care.
All right.
Have a
Yeah.
good
Bye.
weekend.
You too.
Bye.